I'm obsessed 24/7 trying to focus on building this, I would say like I beat the other guy 100% of the times. If you have someone who's relentless, nobody wants to go against someone who's relentless.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's the people you're afraid of, but that's also the people that I will say don't enjoy their success as much.
Hello, everyone. This is the Putzcast. My name is Patricio Putz, and I'm here with...
and I'm the guest, Trinidad, Segovia.
And this is the first episode of the Putzcast.
I'm very excited to be the first guest here.
Yeah.
A little bit worried. This is a little bit of an improv session. But, Putz, what do you want to talk to?
So I just want to talk about like the mission of this podcast in general, which is to help you help the audience and help myself live a more fulfilled life.
So you want this podcast to kind of make you feel accountable, no?
Yeah, feel like you're in control of your own life. And I really want to emphasize what the Stoics emphasize too, which is focus on what you can control.
Okay, so walk me through a little bit of your philosophy and why do you think, like, a little bit of what you learned from, like, Stoicism.
Yeah, so I think one thing that's special about this podcast is that the audience gets to see the advice I talk about being applied to my own life. So I grow alongside the podcast, and I'm still learning. I'm a student. We're both students here at Purdue, and yeah, I mean, my own philosophy is just focus on what you can actually control.
Okay, and I want to say I've been reading a little bit of philosophy lately.
Really?
Yeah, I'd say I'm not anywhere close to an expert, but I've definitely read some things that are very interesting to this kind of idea you're presenting. No, I feel like we as human beings, we tend to obviously go with the crowd. We want stability in our lives. But sometimes I feel like this need for stability also prevents us from reaching our full potential. What do you think? Do you think that that's been shown like in your life?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And one thing that stood out about what you said is like we follow the crowd. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big mistake people, especially young people, do. They try to fit like the norm. They try to fit the status quo. Like in college, mm-hmm. trying to do what everybody else is doing, and they, at the same time, they want to be special. They want to go big. They have these big goals and aspirations. And I think it all boils down to, if you want to be extraordinary, by definition, you need to be out of the ordinary. You need to do something that nobody else is doing. Like, what do you think about that? Like,
so what I think is like, we're creatures of habit, right?
Yeah.
At the end, we as a society, we as people, we seek to just like have shared experiences, have shared thoughts. This is what we seek in the group of people we hang out with, right? So I think it's only natural for us to follow the crowd. I feel like the only power we have is choosing the crowd we try to hang out with, right? Because always going against the norm, going against ideals is one of the hardest things you can do, being a teenager, let's say we're freshmen in college, right? I feel like innovating and going against everyone else is something really hard. So I think like choosing your crowd is something that most people are capable of, or at least myself. This is how I think I've been able to grow in college, is seeking people that I look up to and just like trying to emulate them. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like the people you surround yourself with create you, and they can make or break a goal. And one thing that stood out from what you said is it's hard to go against the norm. It's hard to diverge. And it's hard because of the uncertainty it brings. It's questioning a lot of what you do, why you do it. And the hard part about, if you have a goal that's bigger than those around you, like those people are going to minimize that goal. They want to bring
everyone to the same level, right?
Yeah, they want to bring others to their level, and they fear the uncertainty of pursuing something. And the hard thing about going from the place you are now to the place you want to be, it's that middle part is where you don't know if it'll work out. Why am I staying in this Friday night coding or writing? Like, why?
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like that's one of the biggest problems we face as teenagers. We've grown up with like TikTok, Instagram, all of social media. We want instant gratification. Delayed gratification is one of the hardest things we can do, right? And most of the times when we want to work for a goal that is bigger than ourselves, let's say starting a startup, let's say doing a personal project, whatever, even like trying to find an internship in this point, I'll say it's hella hard, right? So
that's a goal in and of itself.
Yeah, it is incredibly hard. I need to say that. More for like CS majors probably. Yeah. But we don't see the results of our effort, right? Like, we can work for hours on end. We can do 100 math problems, read 200 pages, write if you're a writer. But we don't see the byproducts of our effort till we get that final stretch. How do you feel we as students, we as like young people should kind of see this race, right? Because in this race, I feel like the finish line is always moving. And at one point, we forget to like enjoy the ride. No.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think what we need to focus on this race of life, and as a student, what we need to know is, I don't think there's a finish line. Mm-hmm. I think the point of playing the game is to keep on playing. Because our goals are constantly evolving. Yeah. We want a 4.0 GPA. Next thing you know, you want an internship. Next thing you know, you want to be a portfolio manager. Next thing you want, it never ends. So there's a lot of virtue in being able to be happy and fulfilled with the struggle. During that process of during the journey, being able to take fulfillment out of that. I mean, that's if you manage to do that, you're beating everybody else. I mean, there's something you told me right before we walked into this podcast, which was the tale of Sisyphus, and I said we must imagine Sisyphus happy.
Okay, yeah, but I must agree with you that we're always in a constant race. We need to find happiness in these kinds of moments. If we're on a constant race, we need to be happy running, right? We need to be happy not with our end goal, but with the path we're taking with our end goal. Go on.
With the race, the race we have here, it's, for me, what really limits most people is the finding purpose and meaning. And that's something I've struggled with myself, is I want more. I want something more. You look, and we look for that something, and that something more externally. We want external validation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think, and what I want to do with this podcast, and what I want to talk to and really have come across this point of looking for that validation internally from within.
Yeah. No, definitely. I feel that's something I faced a lot in my life. I always feel like most of us think, or at least me, I feel like most of my validation comes from outside, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I'm competing in something, it's I placed or I lost. Yeah. And that simply is not how we should look at things, right? We should look at the delta between our start point and our end point, and how that has changed us as a person, right? I feel like that's why athletes are normally very, I'll say, very successful in life, because you learn that the results don't define the quality of your work, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a point we should talk about today.
Yeah. How
a lot of us, we're very biased individuals. We're completely irrational, right?
Yeah.
And we think, normally, let's say you buy a stock, it goes up.
Yeah.
Was that a right decision? I mean, most people will say yes, right? But the quality of the decision is not defined by the quality of the outcome.
Yeah.
And I feel that applies not only to buying stocks, gambling, whatever. It also applies to the decisions we make in our life, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, being detached from the outcome is a superpower.
But it's one of the hardest things, right? Because the outcome is your life. No?
Yeah. And being detached from that outcome, and it's also the hard part about the journey. As you mentioned before, we as this generation is so polluted, like their minds are so polluted with instant gratification, so they are not able to see the fruits of their efforts and perpetually and for a future date. And not only that, they need to realize what they're doing now may not be something that bears fruit, and they still must do it. And I loved what the point you said about our outcomes not defining us, because I feel like being able to see the progress and being happy with your advancement as you go. Maybe you never reach the end point, but you've grown as a person. Once we set foot into this journey or a goal, the finish line many times changes. Yeah. But we need to focus on going up the mountain.
No, yeah, definitely. As you said before, this game of life, the point is to keep on growing, keep on improving, right? And once we start changing our mindset from the quality of our outcomes to the quality of our decisions, the quality of the work we put in, I feel that definitely changes how we look at life, right? Yeah. Because we're measuring our improvement simply by ourselves. And this is a type of gratification we find from inside, right? Which is what really matters, which is what brings you happiness. But how do you think we can make this change, and we can start we can start being happy with how our process changes, or what we're doing changing? How would you start doing that?
I'd say to start off, you need to organize your mindset. Eliminate all of the comparison with people outside of yourself. You need to stop comparing yourself with others. You need to start comparing yourself with the person you are today and the person you are yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the biggest mistake people our age make, is comparing themselves and being selfish with others. And, maybe if you have a bigger dream or a bigger goal, like starting a startup, maybe you're in Silicon Valley eating ramen for 5 years while all of your friends are in a high-rise office making 6 figures, right? And that's the moment you question yourself, why am I even doing this? Because you're comparing yourself with others. But you need to remind yourself of why you even started this journey. And this is the point where most people quit. So if you manage to get past this point of why am I even doing this, that's where real success is made. I have one question for you.
Yeah, please.
You're of course, very humble but pretty successful guy going into quantitative trading in the future.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no, I'm certain you will. Math Olympiad. But tell me, what do you think is the biggest mistake people our age make?
I think the biggest mistake people our age make, and even the biggest mistake I've made, I want to say, is not valuing exploring different disciplines. Yeah. Right? And I've seen it in Math Olympiad. I've trained with kids who started prepping for these Math Olympiads since they were 10 years old. I kept on teaching them for plenty of years till they're 17 years old. And all they do is math. And all they do is this one thing. And I do understand that success is constantly is correlated with effort, right? The more effort we put in, the best our success will be. Yeah, it's an obsession, basically. And obsessive people ultimately normally do better in life, right? Yeah. Do better in that certain aspect. But I feel like we as humans, we need to diversify, And I feel that's a very common thing to say. They always say, you can't be locked in on one thing. You need to go out. You need a party. You need to do whatever. You just need to have a very diverse life. Because happiness, I believe different types of happiness can come from different types of places. Yeah. That's one thing I feel we normally miss.
But I think we as individuals shouldn't seek happiness? I think happiness is a byproduct of our mission. You know, we can't, because if we solely focus on being happier,
Yeah.
it's easy to be mistaken with pleasure, instant gratification.
Yeah,
That's why
yeah.
people go out and drink and get hammered, and you know.
No, I definitely understand. But I would disagree. I would say to a certain point, we need to have a balance of our different levels of happiness or different types of happiness. Okay, I'll say an instant gratification is one type of happiness, and we need to have like a certain specific balance of instant gratification, of delayed gratification, and just simply activities that bring us different types of happiness.
Yeah.
Because if we live a life where we only depend, where all of our happiness comes from delayed gratification, it becomes a low volatility life, right? It becomes a life where there's nothing crazy going on, nothing that makes you truly feel a change in the short term. And I feel that's when most of our growth comes, right?
Yeah.
In these high volatility environments where there's like different types of happiness, different types of events going on, this is like creatures of habit will innately grow less because we become accustomed to the same environment, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that growth comes from the edges.
Yeah.
Growth comes from the extremes, from being outside of your comfort zone. And I think it is very important to seek that type of volatility in your life, to try to abstain from a mundane life. But I also have to disagree with I think it's a matter of, it's a case-by-case thing. Uh-huh. I think whatever works for you. But if we're measuring purely in like
success,
reaching a goal, not success, because success is subjective.
Yes.
If we're talking about reaching a goal, like starting a startup, let's say me and you both want to start a startup, and maybe you're even smarter, maybe you're even more capable, but you're focusing your different types of happiness. You're focusing, you know, your diverse happiness, while I'm obsessed 24/7 trying to focus on building this. I would say, like, I beat the other guy 100% of the times. If you have someone who's relentless, nobody wants to go against someone who's relentless.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's the people you're afraid of, but that's also the people that I will say don't enjoy their success as much. Like we were talking before exactly about this, about embracing the path, right?
Yeah.
Let's say out of 100 people that do a startup, one of them will eventually succeed, and the other 100 of them very probably will not, right?
Yeah.
And if we're looking at the success rate of this companies, if we define the success rate as the happiness rate, I feel like as a society we're going backwards, right? Yeah. As a society we're dooming people to fail, right? Because again, startups, let's say it's an alternate race. Instead of 300 million people, instead of how many billion people are in the world right now, it's like a smaller subsection, but it's still an insanely large amount, right? So I feel like the type of motivation that keeps us going on in these startups, in these environments, is finding the happiness in this path, right? That's what we were talking about before.
Yeah, no, I do agree, and I think it's about, I have to, like, I'm personally on the very edge of the obsession, and I've struggled with balance in the past.
Yeah.
And I've definitely, and in my own perspective, I have to say that where my life and where I grew the most were the most obsessive parts of my life.
Definitely.
But I do believe you need some type of balance, and you can't sustain this type of obsession forever.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
One point you said, which was really stuck to me and resonated with me, was these people don't enjoy their successes. And I think that's that's a big problem, because there's one end of the spectrum where, you know, people struggle to find meaning. They struggle to find meaning, so they distract themselves with pleasure. But there's another end to the spectrum where there's people who fail to find pleasure in the small things.
Exactly.
And like the different, as you said, like the diverse things. And these people focus on delayed gratification, but their delayed gratification is perpetual. You know, the gratification never comes. So they become world champions of the marshmallow test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So where do you think, like, students and people in general, and to anybody who's listening, where do you think the line is drawn between, you know, being obsessive and, you know, going towards that purpose or mission or meaning or whatever you want to do with your life, whether it's starting a startup, being a bodybuilder, whatever it may be, right? Where do you draw the line between focusing and putting all your energy towards that and enjoying the journey and not really caring much of, like, being, I feel like you have this person who's like achieving all of these different things, but he doesn't enjoy any of them. And you have this other person who's just like a feather in the wind, like going through life and not really having this sense of direction.
Not really having a sense of direction.
Yeah.
And this is where I'll counter with another point. I believe this happiness or this fulfillment with like people with direction doesn't come from how you interpret happiness or how you lead with happiness, but how you define your identity based on your possible outcomes, right? Yeah. And I feel this goes back again to our fear of volatility. We as people, we as humans, we as university students, we define our identity through our outcomes. Yeah. And that is something that's very wrong. Yeah. Very wrong. Like, I'll say it this way. Let's say I'm doing incredibly well in college, right? If I keep on doing well, outcome number one, I keep on doing well, I keep my status, right? And now, what happens if I fail my next exam? I bomb it. I don't know. I was feeling tired. I was feeling sick, whatever. Now my identity changes.
Yeah, I guess what you're, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I guess what you're trying to say is don't tie your self-worth with your outcomes.
Yeah. Like, if we tie a little, I feel like once we start admiring a future, once we start like really embracing a future, we kind of link ourselves to this future emotionally, see ourselves in this future and make that our identity. Yeah. And I feel that's one of the most dangerous things you can do, because eventually if you were not able to reach that goal for X, Y, Z, whatever, you lose a piece of your identity.
Yeah, that's a great point you say. And I think most people here are, their identity is the internship they want, right? And that's it, you know. I think you need to go deeper than that, you know, and actually have some sense of direction. So one thing that really helped me, so I'll talk about like the three, let's try to hone down. We've done a lot of talking about what not to do. Right? So let's try to focus on like the three life hacks or three things that actually move the needle and help you live a more fulfilled life, right?
Yeah.
And before we go into that, first I think it's valuable to define success. Yeah. And one exercise for anybody listening, and I'll say it to Trinidad here, is what would need to happen by the end of 2026 for you to call this year a success?
You know, I'm a very bad example for this.
Why?
Because the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about success, 2026, I think about internships, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I want my internship for 2027. That's Good. What a successful 2026 is. But it's exactly what we're talking about. I'm like the wrong option.
I mean, we're so good at giving advice, but we don't apply that advice to ourselves.
That's kind of the reason we're here on this podcast, right? To hold accountability for this.
And I think we as human beings like are so good at giving advice, but we're not good at applying our own advice, you know. And I heard this on a Chris Williamson podcast, and it's, think of yourself as if your life was a movie. Mm-hmm. What would like the people in the cinema or in the theater be screaming at? Like, what would they be yelling at you to do right now? Like maybe in a horror movie, they'd be yelling like, "Oh, he's in the closet like with a knife or whatever." But like, what would in a less extreme scenario, like to our lives, what would they be yelling to? And I think personally, one thing they'd be yelling to is like, "Don't work too hard. Don't work so hard." And this may sound cliche or whatever, but I think if you ultimately, what you have at the end of this journey is your experiences.
Yeah.
So seek some level of experiences is something
I feel...
What would they be screaming to you?
Now that you bring it up, I definitely feel like they would probably say, like, explore more, do more, you know? I feel like in looking for this stability, I feel like I'm a person very prone to, like, being afraid of change, right?
Yeah.
So
we all are.
I feel we all are. But at some point, I feel like I lower what I expect of myself, lower what I'm doing. So I am able to adapt to change, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I was entering high school, it was 4 years ago. I went on from being like I was a national champion for Taekwondo, and dropped that just because I wanted time to adapt to change. Yeah. Right now, incoming into college, I've been here for 8-9 months now.
Yeah.
I feel like I've limited my potential because I'm afraid of those moments of high stress.
Yeah.
So what does this lead me to? There are some times where I'm in a high stress scenario and I can manage it. But most of the times I'm just bored. Most of the times I'm not doing anything. I'm playing around. I'm playing Tetris, playing the LinkedIn games, you know? So I definitely feel like if people were watching my movie, they would just say like, keep on exploring, keep on doing more, keep on learning, keep on doing things that make your life less monotonous.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the keys to happiness we should address.
Yeah. Like, so the first key is seek volatility then.
Yeah. I'll say like...
Seek change.
Yeah, whenever I'm telling my life story, I won't say how every day was the same. How I managed to keep my freshman year very stable. I'll talk about the day I had 3 exams in one day and was crying. And then 3 weeks later, I was very happy because...
You were skiing in France, you know?
I was skiing in France, you know? Like, there's this types of peaks which make our life way, way better.
Yeah.
Right?
But I do believe there's some virtue in lowering your baseline of what needs your baseline of satisfaction.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like if we seek a life of volatility, we also need to somehow skew it into a positive direction, right? Or at least how we interpret our outcomes, right?
Yeah. Okay, so the first one is seek change. So for whoever's listening, that means doing something different every day.
Yeah. I mean...
Or what does this mean to you in like applied day-to-day life?
Yeah, I would say once a week, go and do something different. If you've never climbed before, go climbing. And I always feel like one thing I do in my daily life, I'd love to journal. Yeah. I journal every day.
Wow.
What I try to do is I read a paper, I reflect on it, and seeking change and journaling about change is one of the most valuable things you can do.
I think journaling is something I've done before, but I haven't been able to stick to it. But it's something I really believe is one of the most powerful things you can do in terms of like your progress and reflection, because it gives you that sense of direction of. And it helps you analyze what you've done and are you moving in the right direction. And one of the biggest mistakes and biggest risks we have is like it's so easy to go a whole year goes by and look back and think what changed, and nothing, and you might even be further from your goals than you were. It's so easy for that to happen, and the easiest way to avoid this is seeking discomfort, like choosing to grow over choosing to be easy.
But I also think you're bringing a really good point of the value of a journal. Let's say we're running a race, right?
Yeah.
This race of life, having a journal gives us like the 100-meter, 200-meter, 1 mile mark, right? So having a journal makes every day or every week, let's say, seem like an advancement from the last, right? And this is how we turn delayed gratification into something more daily, more weekly. Yeah. So I definitely think like keeping yourself accountable, not only when things go wrong, but when things are going right. Right.
Yeah. And I guess, well, I'm not a good journaler, so I don't know much about how somebody who actually sticks to it does, but how much of your time do you spend looking back to old journal entries?
I'll say like at most 20, 30 minutes a week.
Really?
It's really not that much.
And if you look back, if you look back and read a journal entry from you from like a year ago, do you think what you were worrying at the time, you probably don't even remember what you were worrying?
I wouldn't even remember if it wasn't for the journals.
Yeah.
To be honest, we write about things so seemingly insignificant, but at that moment, it has such a tight grasp into what our life is.
And I think it also helps you break down your fears, right? If you write them down and you actually read them, it's like, well, it's not that bad as I thought it was.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely become more analytical when we start putting everything on pen and paper.
Right? Yeah, and I think we have all these worries and anxieties, and once we put it down, this minimizes that fear. And I think fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. I heard that from Alex Ramosi.
What do you mean by that? Elaborate a little bit more.
So fear is this lake that extends over the horizons, but it's only an inch deep. Right. So you only need to step and do it. And then you realize, oh, it's not that bad. But most people fail before they start.
Just because they're afraid of that next step. Right?
Yeah. And so this takes me to my second point. You addressed volatility. I want to address something similar, but slightly different, which is uncertainty. Right. I think we need to be comfortable with uncertainty. Prioritizing direction over certainty.
And how do you think we can start doing that in our lives? Because I feel like, I don't know, uncertainty is something very hard to think about, right? Because we always want to, like, let's say once we have direction, we have our next step. If I'm going from point A to point B, I want to be sure I'm getting to point B.
Yeah, right? But the hard thing about any goal worth pursuing is that while you're in that middle, you don't know if you'll reach that B. So you need to get yourself to believe in it, I guess. I guess that's one, like, believing it can happen.
And I also believe to a certain point, we need to believe in our abilities to pivot.
Yeah.
Right? In our abilities to be versatile as individuals. Yeah. Because I'll say it. Like, I started out as one major. I'm now trying to do, I've been changing majors for like the past 8 months now.
Yeah.
You know?
I've had a similar journey. Yeah.
So I feel like whenever you say, let's say, I'm going to be major A.
Yeah.
I tell everyone, hey, guys, I'm going to be major A. Everyone's like, wow, this is so cool, right? Yeah. And then you go to major B and people are like, okay, well, like, pretty cool. And then you go to major C and it's like, bro.
Yo, what are you doing later?
Yeah, what are you doing? Come on, like.
But I think also what you said of, like, believing that, like, if you have this track record of adapting to all this volatility, you have this factual evidence of belief that whatever situation you're put into, you can get out of that, you know?
Yeah, and I definitely feel like...
If you truly believe that.
I feel like once we start looking at life this way of, like, looking for volatility, looking for growth instead of results, so when we start finding out that this path makes us people that no matter what happens, we're valuable, right? No matter what happens, we're successful, right? Let's say I study engineering and I don't end up being engineering. Those core skills eventually, like, apply to different jobs, right? Yeah. Same thing. Like, what we learn along the way, once we start looking at life that way, let's say you're going to run another race, and you're going to need to start from the starting point again. You now know how to run way better than you did the first time. Maybe you bought a car, okay, and now you're going way faster. So definitely, once we start looking at life in this way of growth, in this way of volatility, in this way of like being comfortable with the unexpected, right?
Yeah. And you need to find the beauty in these like changes in this volatility, because especially at a young age, you're trying to optimize and you're trying to maximize a life that you like, a goal or a purpose that you haven't even defined. Most people, like, I don't even know what I guess my purpose is, you know. And when do we find that out? Do you think our purpose is found or built?
That's a very hard question.
Like, do you think we just suddenly like take a trip, like solo trip, and stumble upon like, oh, I'm gonna be doing this for the rest of my life, or this is what I want to dedicate all my existence to? Or do you think we, in a way, with our subconscious,
start building from?
Yeah,
I'll say we start building our.
Yeah, we need to fill in that gap of like nothing matters, you know, because if you look at it objectively, we're a rock and like a universe and like a space. Like, I'm no space guy, right? Like, I don't even know like much about that, but like, we're just a rock, right? So if you think about it objectively, like none of it matters, but we give meaning to the life ourselves. So what do you think?
I mean, I feel like we as humans, we seek to be virtuous, right? We seek to be good people.
Yeah.
Goodness is obviously a product of habit.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we want to be virtuous individuals, if we want to be individuals that fulfill their full potential, this potential or this purpose starts building up, and we iterate on our purpose constantly, right? It's kind of like most philosophers address something called the dialectic, right? Yeah. We have a hypothesis, we have an idea. Let's say my example.
Yeah.
I grew up with a really, what I say is a very bad education system, very dumb, right?
Well, so I don't think that worked out really bad for you, did it?
It didn't work out badly, but I need to say, like, it worked. It didn't help a lot of people, right? So I grew up with this system, and I'm like, I need to make a change, right? I don't want people to keep on facing the same obstacles I did, or just not enjoy the educational system as much as other people in the world, as much as other people could, right? So I find this as my purpose. I'll say when I'm 15 years old, I say, I know ultimately I want to help someone in education. I want to improve the educational system, right?
Yeah.
But now, as I keep on going through my life, I find different things that interest me or different ways I can attack this problem. And I feel this is kind of the dialectic, the movement of, okay, this didn't work out, or I evolved and my purpose needs to evolve with it, right? So I definitely feel that our purpose and what makes us like innately good people, our virtue, changes as we go through life.
Yeah. I think our meaning is ever evolving, and the one thing that remains is our character. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of virtue in optimizing that character and your core values, and you know, because the meaning might change, and you know, right now you might only care about being successful, right? Like many people, including myself, like 10 years down the road, the only thing they think about is success. And they don't account for the possibility of their definition of success to change. And it often does. Definitely. It often does. And I think, personally, the hardest pain I've faced in life is climbing this mountain, reaching the top, and realizing I climbed the wrong mountain.
That's a great point. I feel like our biggest fear should not be not being good at anything, but being good at the wrong thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's so easy to get to miss that in our lives, because social media often pushes this like comparison with others, and you want what everybody else wants, and you want to become good at what everybody else wants to become good at, and that creates a cycle and eliminates meaning. So
then going back to our third points, our third life hacks, let's say, of living a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
I would say our third one would be something around like just working on our core values and our core strengths.
Yeah.
Right?
What would you say is like a good, like the best core value that has really taken you to that next level?
What do you mean?
Like what value have you worked actively, try to like intentionally try to become more, maybe you've become more patient, or you've become, which value has actually had the highest ROI in your life?
I would say,
I guess we can reframe the question. What habit or what change? Because if you try to change a value, you're doing it many times through like a habit or action.
Yeah, exactly. Changing.
So what as a student, as a high performance student, what do you think are like the top three highest ROI habits or decisions, or the top one? What's the biggest?
I'll say it's very subjective. Like
to you.
Yeah, I'd say for everyone. For me, at least,
yeah.
I think the best thing I've done is to start being able to communicate more, and stop being afraid of like other people's opinions. Right?
Yeah. Wow, that's a good point.
No, I feel like everyone says it. I feel like honestly,
that might even be or like we need to do a fourth for that one.
I feel like it all depends on the type of person, right? But I definitely feel like when I look back in my life, it might be some hindsight bias, definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I had never opened up the way I did, I wouldn't be as happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to say when I was in fifth grade, I was like the shy. No, not even fifth. Like all the way from third grade, I was like a pretty shy kid. I would barely speak up, and then I started reflecting, and I started looking at my life, and I'm like, hey, the only friends I've made, the friends that truly make me happy, I've made in those moments where I was like not afraid to speak out, not afraid to say whatever came to my head. Just started meeting people that shared the same ideas, that shared the same passions. So that's one thing that really helped me out. Yeah. That's one thing that still helps me out in college, right? Yeah. Like the favorite people I've met here have been through completely irrational conversations, no thought put behind it. Hey, I go to people and I'm like, hey, what do you think about insert X interest, insert Y thing?
Yeah.
And it's fully me authentically. I feel like we as people try to filter ourselves so we fit into more places. Yeah. But when we modify ourselves to fit, we're just modifying for a version of ourselves we truly aren't.
Yeah, and I think when you become what everybody else around you becomes and you try to fit into the most things, everybody's becoming this kind of like same person.
Yeah, definitely. We're ultimately not that person. We're just trying to portray we are.
What part of that old self, or that shy person, still remains in this life, and you're like today? Maybe that's where you got a lot of the reflection from.
Yeah, I want to say being shy taught me a lot, taught me the value of other people's opinions, the value of other people's point of view, right?
Yeah.
I feel like everyone that starts yapping, I'm a very big yapper, right?
Yeah.
We start yapping and we forget to hear other people. And communication is the basis of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
If I weren't in this podcast right now, I would learn less simply because I'm communicating with another person about something that interests me,
Yeah.
right? And we need to find ourselves to be introspective but also open. And I feel that's something we as a society are struggling to do more and more.
And with constant distractions, this eliminates a lot of that personal introspection.
Yeah, definitely. And I also feel like all of this introspection we had before has slowly evolved into confirmation through social media.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say I'm a flat earther. I'll take a very extreme scenario, right?
Yeah.
I'm a flat earther. I start looking on Google.
Yeah.
Why is the earth flat? I start seeing a ton of newspaper articles or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I hop on Instagram and the first thing that I see is scientists prove the earth is flat.
Yeah.
Right? So now I don't need to think about anything because the algorithm is doing it all for me.
Yeah, I think most of our beliefs are not even ours.
No. I'll say our philosophy, our way of thinking is directly a product of our language, our culture, and probably our learning. I think that's the three fundamentals.
And yeah, our philosophy, it's this thing acquired from a collective, let's just say a collective externalities, and we're somehow so attached to them, right? We fear change. We fear changing them when in reality they're not even our own thoughts.
And that's because we start making these things part of our identity.
Yeah.
It goes exactly back to what we were talking about before, about making outcomes our identity. And I feel like this is why politics is getting so polarized.
Yeah.
Sorry. We start making outcomes our personality. We start making all this philosophy.
Yeah.
We lose all our capabilities of thought when everything is derivative of what we see online.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something I'm really afraid of.
I mean, we all need to spend less time on our phones, right?
Yeah, I feel everyone talks about it, but no one talks about how, or at least not a lot of people talk about how, aside from making us less of a thinker, less of a critical person, it also removes our individuality.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd even go as far as saying is AI does a little bit of this too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How much of your critical thinking is destroyed by outsourcing that to ChatGPT? Well, I'm not going to give free sponsors or ads, so maybe Claude or whatever you're using. But how much of that critical thinking in our own life is killed because we're doing all of our thinking asking ChatGPT?
I think this is a phenomenon we've been facing for a while now. Yeah. And it doesn't come with AI. It comes from consulting even, I'd say. Yeah. It comes from having people, you always, whenever you have hard questions, you kind of ask your family, you kind of ask your friends.
Yeah.
Right? And most of the times, sometimes you probably need them. You probably need their opinion. They're more specialized than you are.
Yeah.
But sometimes we just want that confirmation.
We want that validation.
And we want the weight of the opinion to not fall on ourselves.
One thing I learned that really helped me become more autonomous and have this sense of agency was stop taking advice from people who have smaller goals for yourself than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If people don't believe it.
But oftentimes our parents or one of these, our parents maybe want the safest path for us. Our parents want to be sure that we'll be we'll have a home and we'll have something to eat.
Constant income, whatever.
Yeah. Like that 9 to 5. Which, what do you think of this? This might be a controversial. We might cut this out. But what do you think of the rat race? What do you think happens to people who fall victim to this rat race and constantly seeking that next promotion? Will they ever be fulfilled?
I feel like the innate nature of the rat race is that they're never fulfilled.
Yeah.
But it's not because of the rat race in itself. It's because of how we behave. This is exactly the point we've been talking about, right? Yeah. This is a point we've wanted to highlight all this podcast.
Yeah.
It's about the importance of not judging our happiness by the outcomes.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you'll become a manager. You'll become, I don't know, you follow this track, this race with everyone else.
Yeah.
But this is what ultimately, the lifestyle that will only make the people that find the path happy, ultimately happy.
Yeah, no, one thing this reminds me of, it's the Mexican fisherman story. The Mexican fisherman tale. And okay. I don't know it word by word, but it goes, there was this British businessman who came to a Mexican island.
Yeah.
And there was this, he was trying to get to a different island, and he hopped on the boat with a Mexican fisherman, and and they were talking, and he said, the businessman asked the fisherman, "What do you do for a living?" And he said, "Well, I fish." And he said, "Oh, well, so you fish, and for what?" And he said, "Well, I sell it, I make money, and I sometimes catch what I eat for my family, and I just spend sometimes just for fun." And he said, well, you're dumb, because you could, get your friends to fish with you and then get more fish and make more profit." And the Mexican says, for what? And they said, no, yes. So once you do that, you're going to make enough money to get a bigger ship and get more people, and you're actually going to start a factory. And you're going to start selling that fish, canned fish, to Britain. And you're going to get more money. And then it's like, for what? And then you make more money so you can retire. And once you retire, you can fish all you want. And the Mexican fisherman says, well, I'm doing that right now. So it's like he wants more money to be able to retire in 60 and then fish all day, when the Mexican is already fishing all day. He's already doing what he loves.
Yeah, I feel like that's the problem with how we frame the rat race, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is running the same path. Everyone is doing this race. If we find ourselves ultimately happy with this race, then what is the problem, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
But our utility is defined by the happiness of our lives, right?
Yeah.
And if our job, okay, it's a 9 to 5, I'll be doing marketing, but I love marketing, I'm gonna be happy, right? I'm gonna be happy independently as long as I can sustain my family, right? It's the diminishing utility of wealth, right?
Yeah, that's. So, I guess for anybody watching this, if it wasn't stressed enough, stop measuring life by outcomes.
Yeah.
So what would you say is, like, if somebody wasn't listening all this time, and they would only hear one piece of advice from you, what would you say to the next generation?
I'll say, let's do the 3 life hacks, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be more fulfilled with your life,
if
you want to live a life that's truly worth telling the people, that is like a good movie to watch, right?
Yeah. Once you're 80, you're sitting in your deathbed telling a good story.
Yeah. Make that story as fun, as happy as possible, right? So Number 1,
Volatility.
let's find volatility in our lives. Let's make those happy moments very happy.
Step outside your comfort zone.
Exactly. Number 2, being comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah.
What we're looking for in our lives, if we always go from path A to path B, maybe path B stops being the goal at some point.
Yeah.
Right? So let's just find what makes us the best person, what makes us happiest, what makes us the best geared for whatever the challenges will come. Right?
Yeah.
And number 3?
Number 3, choose direction over anything.
But well, thank you so much for watching this first.
Yeah. This first episode was great. It was great. Thank you, Trinidad, for all of this knowledge you poured into.
Thank you for inviting me, Patricio. Yeah. And well, I'll be keeping up with the podcast. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.